Hello students, so this video is based on the process of absorption of the digested food material. As in the previous video we have discussed about the mechanism of digestion in the different parts. Now we will discuss about the absorption, how these different components of food they are being absorbed by the body, how they are entering to the bloodstream. So for to understand this process, we need to understand what is absorption. Absorption is the process by which the end product of digestion passes through the intestinal mucosa into the blood or the lymph. So the mechanism through which the digested food items they enter into the blood or lymph, and this entry is taken through the intestinal mucosa. So these substances they are basically absorbed by the three mechanisms are there, that is passive absorption, active absorption and the facilitated absorption. So we will first understand these three mechanisms, how these three mechanisms will work, and then we will proceed to the absorption of the different components. First of all, the passive absorption. Passive absorption is also known as the diffusion. That simply means movement of particles from higher concentration inside the small intestine to the lower concentration, that means inside the blood and lymph. That simple movement is called as the passive absorption or simple diffusion, and the movement of such particles that occur along the concentration gradient, that we know from the higher to the lower concentration. So that is called as the passive absorption. Second one is the active absorption. So in case of active absorption, the absorption that occur against the concentration gradient. Now here the important thing is there that absorption is occurring against. It means in this case the absorption is occurring from lower to the higher. Here it was from higher to the lower. So here it is from the lower to the higher against the concentration gradient. So when we have to absorb something from the lower to the higher concentration, definitely we have to apply some energy. So in case of active absorption, we need to apply some एनर्जी. फाइन. सो हम एक सिंपल सी एग्जाम्पल ले सकते हैं कि आपने ग्राउंड फ्लोर से टॉप फ्लोर पे पानी पहुंचाना है, तो आपको एक पंप, एक मोटर अप्लाई करनी पड़ेगी सो दैट वाटर विल बी पुल्ड अप. तो उसी तरह से यहाँ पर अब लोअर कंसंट्रेशन टू हायर कंसंट्रेशन हमने उसको लेके जाना है. सो फॉर दैट वी नीड सम एनर्जी. सो ऑलवेज रिमेंबर, पैसिव में हायर टू लोअर है, एक्टिव में लोअर टू हायर है. पैसिव डू नॉट अप्लाई एनर्जी, एक्टिव अप्लाई एनर्जी. इसीलिए इसको एक्टिव कहा जाता है बिकॉज इट यूज और इट अप्लाई सम एनर्जी. नेक्स्ट वन इज़ द फैसिलिटेटेड डिफ्यूजन. अब ये हमारा मैकेनिज्म है जहाँ पर सम ऑफ द सब्सटेंसेस दे आर एब्जॉर्ब्ड विद द हेल्प ऑफ कैरियर प्रोटीन्स. फाइन. अब यहाँ पर प्लाज्मा मेम्ब्रेन के अंदर कुछ कैरियर प्रोटीन्स हैं, उनको हम टनल प्रोटीन्स भी बोलते हैं, एंड दीज प्रोटीन्स दे हेल्प इन द ट्रांसपोर्ट ऑफ द सेलेक्टेड substances. Fine. So here it is facilitated. Here the transport is facilitated by some carrier proteins. So this mechanism is called as the facilitated diffusion. Then the next one is the transport of water, that also depend upon the concentration gradient. We know that the water is transported through the process of osmosis, that is from higher to lower concentration through a semi-permeable membrane. So these are the basic ways through which the different materials has been absorbed: passive absorption, active absorption and facilitated diffusion. Now we will discuss about the different components of food which are being absorbed by after digestion. So we know that the carbohydrates are changed into glucose. So glucose is absorbed by all the three mechanisms. Simple diffusion से भी absorb होता है, facilitated diffusion as well as the active transport. तीनों ही mechanism से glucose को uptake किया जाता है. Next is the amino acids. So amino acids they are also absorbed by all the three mechanisms. Simple diffusion से भी, facilitated से भी और active transport से भी. Next one is water. We know that is by the process of osmosis. Now some of the ions like the chloride ions, sodium ions, so there is some difference between them. In case of chloride ions, they are absorbed by the simple diffusion, that is from higher to lower concentration, whereas in case of the ions like the sodium ions, they are being uptake by the active absorption. So that means with the application of the energy, they are being absorbed. Now we will talk about the fatty acids and the glycerol. So we know that the fatty acids and glycerol, they are entering or they are absorbed by the lacteals or the lymph vessels present in the intestinal villi. So first, these fatty acids and glycerols incorporate into the small micelles in intestinal mucosa. Fine, they will not be absorbed as it is. They will first change to the small micelles, and then they are reformed into the chylomicrons. So now focus at this term. What is chylomicron? This is a small protein coated fat globule. That means these fat micelles, they are surrounded by the protein coat. फाइन, मिसल्स का स्ट्रक्चर 10th में हमने किया हुआ है. उस स्ट्रक्चर के आसपास अब हमने एक प्रोटीन की कोट लगा दी, एक उसको सराउंड कर दिया, एंड नाउ दोज फैट मिसल्स दे विल बी एब्जॉर्ब्ड इन द लेक्टियल्स इन द स्मॉल इंटेस्टाइनल विलाई. फाइन. सो नेक्स्ट वन इज़, जब हमने सारे फूड को एब्जॉर्ब कर लिया, then the next step of the digestion is assimilation. So assimilation क्या होता है? The absorbed substances finally reach the tissues which utilize them for their activities. This process is called as assimilation. Then we use them for our different activities, growth के लिए, repair के लिए, formation of different components in the body. So that is called as the assimilation. And then the next step is ejection of the feces to the outside through the anal opening, जिसको हम defecation process को बोलते हैं, and is a volunteer process. Fine, it's a volunteer process and is carried out by a mass peristaltic movement. So for that, again, that peristaltic movement occur in the last part of your alimentary canal, and through the volunteer action we expel that out from the body. So here is a diagram I have taken which is explaining you the process of absorption. So you can see this is the villi where the absorption is occurring. So here inside the villi, these are the blood vessels, that this is your veins, and this one is the arteries. So here you can see the different components of food has been entered, like here the small fatty acids are here, amino acids are there, monosaccharides, that means glucose, and this is the bloodstream. And here inside this lacteals you can see that the chylomicrons, that means the small micelles of the fats surrounded by the protein coat, they have entered the lymph vessel, and finally they has been distributed to the different parts of the body. Now let's take a summary for the absorption of food in different parts. Now we will see in which part which component has been absorbed. We have discussed the mechanism कि ग्लूकोज कैसे लेते हैं, अमाइनो एसिड्स को कैसे लिया जाता है, फैटी एसिड्स को कैसे लिया जाता है. नाउ वी विल डिस्कस कि बॉडी के किस पार्ट में किसकी एब्जॉर्प्शन होती है. सो हेयर वी विल स्टार्ट विद द माउथ. सो लाइक माउथ में हमारे पास है सर्टेन ड्रग्स कमिंग इन कॉन्टैक्ट विद द म्यूकोसा ऑफ माउथ, एंड द लोअर साइड ऑफ द टंग आर एब्जॉर्ब्ड इन द blood capillaries lining them. You can recall sometimes कुछ ड्रग्स ऐसी होती हैं, दवाइयाँ ऐसी होती हैं, डॉक्टर्स बोलते हैं इमीडिएट अपनी टंग के नीचे उसको रख लो, स्पेशली हार्ट पेशेंट्स को कुछ दी जाती हैं. सो वो जो मेडिसिन हैं, दैट मीन्स दे आर एब्जॉर्ब्ड बाय द म्यूकोसा ऑफ द बकल कैविटी. देन सेकेंड इज़ द स्टमक. अब स्टमक में एब्जॉर्प्शन किस चीज़ की होती है? वाटर की, सिंपल शुगर एंड एल्कोहल. ये तीन चीज़ें जो हैं वो स्टमक में एब्जॉर्ब होती हैं, वाटर, सिंपल शुगर एंड एल्कोहल. स्मॉल इंटेस्टाइन की बात करें, वी नो दैट ये प्रिंसिपल ऑर्गन है एब्जॉर्प्शन के लिए, वेयर द एब्जॉर्प्शन विल अकर. So the digestion is completed here, and final product of digestion such as glucose, fructose, fatty acids, glycerols and amino acids are absorbed through the mucosa into the bloodstream and lymph. That हमने अभी डिटेल में डिस्कस कर लिया किस तरह से इन सबको एब्जॉर्ब किया जाता है. And the large intestine is there, so the absorption of water, some minerals and few drugs. कुछ ड्रग्स जो हैं वो हमारी लार्ज इंटेस्टाइन में भी एब्जॉर्ब की जाती हैं. सो दिस इज़ दी समरी शोइंग दी एब्जॉर्प्शन ऑफ डिफरेंट कंपोनेंट्स इन डिफरेंट पार्ट्स ऑफ द एलिमेंट्री कैनाल. थैंक यू.